This is the Future Talent Podcast, a future-focused podcast series showing the channels that enterprise can engage today to empower their current employees and future-proof the talent pipeline of tomorrow. This series is brought to you by Technological University Dublin's Enterprise Academy. We create learning solutions to enable your business success. Want to find out how we can support your learning and development needs? Visit www.tudublin.ie/enterprise-academy to book in a call with our team.
Welcome to the second series of the Future Talent Podcast. In this episode, we are joined by Ritchie Jones, a seasoned technologist with over 20 years of experience in financial services and technology consulting. Ritchie, currently serving as a principal enterprise technologist at AWS or Amazon Web Services, shares his insights on the dynamic and evolving landscape of artificial intelligence. An alumnus of TU Dublin, Ritchie shares his reflections on AI's promises and the balancing act required to manage its associated risks. He highlights the transformative potential of AI, illustrated through the pioneering work of Cool Planet, an Irish company leveraging AI for global sustainability efforts. As AI continues to integrate into various sectors, including legal, finance, and healthcare, Ritchie underscores the critical need for domain knowledge, critical thinking, and robust governance frameworks to navigate the complexities of AI deployment. His insights not only shed light on the practical applications of AI, but also prepare us for the future, where AI will be an indispensable tool in driving business value and innovation. Join us as Ritchie Jones guides us through the exciting journey of building the future with AI, revealing both its vast potential and the critical measures needed to harness it responsibly.
Delighted to be here. I was a previous student of Dublin Institute of Technology, and I remember when this was just a dream that people were campaigning for. I was in Kevin Street, crammed into Kevin Street, so to see the campus today in reality is absolutely amazing to be here today. But what I want to talk to you a lot about today for the next 30 minutes or so, or 40 minutes, is balancing the future with AI and the promises and the challenges that come with it. Many of you would ask, why is someone from Amazon Web Services here to talk about AI and balancing the challenges and the risks? But one of the things that Amazon will talk about is how do we build AI for good? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to look at some of the innovation that we're seeing with AI, and also then some of the risks and challenges that we want companies to be aware of so they can make it part of their planning and make it part of their everyday life as part of it. But I did want to step back a little bit and talk a little bit about Amazon in Ireland. Many people don't know how many people are actually here and what we actually do in Ireland. Besides, you'll hear it a lot in the press about our data centres. But directly or indirectly, there is over 10,000 people working for Amazon Web Services in Ireland today. I will make the differentiation between Amazon.com, which is the shopping side of it and the retail side of it, and Amazon Web Services, which is the cloud infrastructure providers. We operate across the whole of Ireland, so we have team members spread across all of Ireland, but we also then roll up into a global organisation. What that's actually allowed us to do is to invest significantly in Ireland in data centres. They are one of the things that you will hear a lot about in the news and press about data centres and how energy is being used. But part of what we've built around that, and you will actually see it as part of our partnership with TUD, as we actually train people to actually operate and work and manage and build the next generation of data centres. So we have to build a data center, approximately about 2,500 people. And once they're built, there's about 250 jobs in just running it day to day. And that's part of what we actually do. Over the last 10 years, we've invested over about $10 billion in Ireland to build up our infrastructure so that we can meet the demand. And a lot of that is being generated by AI. So when I look at AI, it brings a huge promising amount of innovation, but at the same time raises risks and challenges. So today we want to talk about some of the innovation, and we're actually going to look at an example from an Irish company that's using AI to actually help drive sustainability across the globe. You'll see a little bit of a company called Cool Planet, who are actually based in Wicklow and are working on sustainability and decarbonisation of industrial organisations. But we are also then going to spend the second half of the presentation talking about some of the risks and challenges that you'll see with it, and how to specifically look at building a framework to allow organisations support AI as part of the organisation. You will have seen from the show of hands that virtually everybody in the room is using AI. It is an amazing help in people's day-to-day jobs, but it is something we want people to be careful about and understand some of the risks and challenges as part of that. I do know I'm probably 4 minutes into this presentation. I've probably said AI more than 50 times at this stage. But what do I mean when I talk about AI? It sometimes is a little bit confusing. You'll hear people interchangeably use the word AI, generative AI, machine learning, deep learning. But we will talk about AI today as that superset of artificial intelligence, using machines to help mimic human behavior. Then that goes into machine learning. It goes then on to deep learning, and finally generative AI. What I'm going to say today probably might shock a lot of people. I am going to say that generative AI is not the answer to every problem. Sometimes artificial intelligence will more than answer the problem. Sometimes machine learning. I will say use the right tool for the right problem. You may have got caught up in the hype cycle of generative AI. What's your problem with people throwing generative AI at everything? But it's about using the spectrum of it. I was working with a company last week where we actually went through this whole scenario with them, and we ended up saying that, actually, you know what? An if then else statement will perfectly answer your problems. There is no need to go all the way to using generative AI. But with that, I did want to talk a little bit more about Cool Planet. Cool Planet are a new startup. They're based out actually in the Paris Court in Wicklow. They have probably one of the most amazing offices you will ever see. They have an estate building, a golf course, a 5-star hotel, and now a distillery all on their doorstep. So a very nice place to go visit. But they're working on decarbonisation of the world. And how do you actually do that? So why are Cool Planet using AI? Well, this is probably the 4 buckets that virtually every company can be broken up into. Most companies, when you start, or organizations, when you start talking to them about using AI, it falls into 4 main buckets: new experiences, productivity, insights, and creativity. So the ability to create new experiences, the new way people are able to interact with it. So taking, in the case of Cool Planet, taking a paper bill or a paper statement and being able to ingest it and then see that on the screen and be able to interact with it and make decisions and make business decisions based on that. To improve productivity, so taking processes that used to take days and weeks and shrinking them down to hours and days. Insights, so being able to look at vast sums of data and being able to then use that data to make sure that you were making the right decisions. Empower organizations to become data-driven. I was reading a survey yesterday which talks about the amount of data that's actually being created in the world. 2025, we're expecting 175 zettabytes of data to be created and stored in the world. To put that in perspective, that is a billion terabytes of, a zettabyte is a billion terabytes of data. So massive, huge amount of data that is beyond human ability to read and ingest it. So we can use machines to actually help understand that and derive new insights from that. And the last one is creativity. Being able to use AI to help with product development, understand how we can speed up product development and creation of new content. If I was to sum up the last 18 months, and at Amazon, I am allowed to say the word ChatGPT and OpenAI. It is okay. I won't get fired for saying that. But ChatGPT really got everyone's attention around the effect of generative AI. And if I was to sum up the year of 2023, it was the year of the learning. It was people understanding of what generative AI could do, how it was going to work, how it would impact their business, where it was going to bring them over the next number of years. It will probably no surprise that one of the words of the year of 2023 was the word hallucination. And we will talk a little bit more about what a hallucination is and what that means and how do we work with that. If I was to look at 2024, it is the year of implementation. or for some. Not everyone is there yet today, but year of 2024 is how do I bring this into my business? How do I bring this into my organization? And how do I make use of this? And that's where we see people starting to look at not only the promise of innovation, but also the risks and challenges. It might surprise you that most of my work as a technologist with Amazon is actually spent in the people and process side of it. I probably spend about 80 to 90% of my time working with people around what is this going to mean for their people, what it's going to mean for their process. I started off as a Java engineer, spending most of my time trying to connect to databases and trying to build UIs on top of databases. Now I spend a lot of my time talking to learning and development teams, to HR teams about how do you upskill your teams, how so they can make use of this. If I look into the future, I'm trying not to look too far and make too many bold predictions, but by 2028, what do companies expect? So companies are expecting about 85% of them are to adopt AI as part of their organization. 91% of them are going to see the benefits. And what they expect, organizations expect, is about a 41% increase in productivity. This is actually taken from a global survey, but is specifically focused on Europe. So it's not including North American data, which sometimes can give different stats, but this is what does Europe actually see as what's going to happen as part of it. I probably like to take a step back and think about what it's going to mean for me. I am pretty selfish. I want to make sure I have a job for the next number of years to make sure that I can keep going. But what is AI going to mean to me? And one of the quotes that I actually like is from a Professor Scott Galloway, who's a professor in New York University. And he has a statement that people are worried about AI is going to take their jobs. AI is unlikely to take people's jobs, but somebody who understands AI and can actually make use of it is going to take your job. There's actually a professor, George Hinton is his name, he's a radiologist. He's then taken that and said, AI is not going to replace radiologists. A radiologist that can use AI is going to replace radiologists. So they've now taken that statement and can see the benefits of it. See the benefits of being able to use AI to augment what they're doing today, to speed up, to catch the things you miss in medicine, to be able to understand how can I analyze vast sets of data much quicker and be able to give insight back to people to make a decision on. Not replacing decision, having that human in the loop as part of that. But as we pivot to that form of working, that way of working, we do have to think about what skills people are going to need as part of that. So what skills, looking at your organization and looking at yourself, what skills do you have in your inventory? How do my skills need to change over time? And how do I put processes in place in organizations to make sure that those skills are being given to the organization for them to actually take that up? And then how is our industry or business model actually changing as part of that? So if you look across the world in the last 2 to 3 years, the number of business models and the number of industries that have actually been disrupted by AI, and looking how that business model is going to change as part of that. It will probably surprise you, and it surprises a lot of people, that one of the fastest adopting sectors that we deal with for AI is the legal sector. They have adopted generative AI for efficiency. So it goes all the way from people being able to analyze huge documents to understand, is there conflict of interests? Is there something in there? Is there new clauses that need to be added to terms and conditions? But all the way through to helping solicitors and lawyers, actually, how do they book time? I spent a lot of time over the last 12 months with a law firm in the US, and their senior attorneys bill their time every 6 minutes. So actually been using AI to help book their time and make sure they're tracking time based on their calendar entries is really important to what they do as part of that. So what skills do you need? Some of them are going to be really obvious to people. Data science and machine learning, software engineering, cloud engineering, they're the ones that you're going to hear most thrown out by people. That is being able to build and engineer these systems. But the two that I actually think are the two most important that people a lot of times skip over are domain knowledge and critical thinking and problem solving. So you need to be able to understand. You need to understand the domain. The machine is going to spit out answers, but you need to understand the domain to go, is this the right answer? Is this the wrong answer? Is this the right context for the answer that I've been given? But also, you need to have critical thinking and problem solving. So how do you look at your business process today? How do you look at your organization? And how do you make those changes in your business model so that the organization still continues to operate as you're doing this? It may be more efficient, it may be going in new directions, but how do you make sure that you're understanding the problem that you're trying to solve? You would have seen very early at the start when we started to talk about business value and customer value, and that is critical. How do you work backwards? And you will hear Amazon say that a lot. How do you work backwards from the business problem that you're trying to solve? And rather than going, we're going to use generative AI, work out what problem you're trying to solve with the customer, and then try to figure out how you're going to help them solve that problem. What I want you to think about when we think about working with teams of people, everybody is slightly different to the way they adopt and the way they understand information. A number of years ago, there was a guy called Jeffrey Moore who wrote this book around crossing the chasm, and it was around product adoption models. But the model that he's actually drew actually can apply to the way people take on information as well. So in everybody, understanding their perspective of people in your organization, there will be the early majority of people that have jumped in 2 feet into the middle of AI. They are AI powered. They are the ones that have adopted this early. There was going to be a proportion of your organization that are going to be like that. And yes, they're very important that you are supporting them. You are giving them the framework and the foundations to be able to support them in what they're doing so that you actually help that innovation continue to foster within the organization. There will be an early majority of people that are looking for complete solutions. They are not looking for bits and pieces that they sew together, but they will actually need solutions that they can actually use day to day in their organization. And they're looking for opportunities to practice. They are not as risk embracing as the first set of people in your organization, but they do want to be part of it. And then lastly, there's the late majority. So these people that are looking for stability, they are looking for career paths to be part of it. They are looking for the full part of what this is going to mean for them today and in the future. And it is really important that you start to look at how the different parts of your organization actually ingest and adopt these new technologies and these new practices. I will say, none of this is new. Jeffrey Moore wrote this back in the 80s, and it is what we've now seen over years of practice. This is how organizations adopt technologies and adopt new practices as part of it. But I do want to think about creating a bought-in team. The way this is going to work in organizations is when organizations embrace this and see this as something that's actually going to mean something for them. As part of the EU AI Act that was recently announced, one of the lines in that is that all employees in the EU will need to be trained on AI. Now, it doesn't say how far, it doesn't say how far you will need to go on it, but everybody is going to need to understand what it's going to mean to them and in their job day to day. So be clear on the why. Why are we doing this? What is it going to mean for the organization? What business value are we trying to drive as part of that? How are we doing that? Giving people the confidence to show and understand that this is not something that's just been strung together overnight, but this is a well thought out part of the plan, and it is part of driving our organization closer to what our goals are for the organization. And then finally, what's in it for them? People will always come back to think about what's in it for them. How is this going to improve my job? How is this going to make me more efficient? What is next in my career? How can I use that? And we want to see about how AI can actually do that. You see a lot of organizations automating and taking away some of the more mundane activities that people are having to do. So copying data from a sheet of paper onto a screen. So being able to use intelligent document processing to actually do that automatically so people can focus on the contents, not the transcribing of the document. I will also talk about how do you select the right first project. One of the things that you will see organizations and what I will always talk about is focusing on be driven by business value. Don't be doing AI projects because the CEO of the organization said we need to have AI in our product roadmap in the next 12 months, so please come up with an AI feature. I've seen that a number of times. That is only going to lead to failure across the organization. Understand the business value of what you're actually trying to deliver for your customer. Plan to grow, not just cut. A lot of organizations have seen this as creating efficiencies in the organization and get caught up on low-hanging fruit. And we have a saying of don't starve on low-hanging fruit. Start to go after some of the bigger things that are going to help your organization grow, and look at new business models for your organization and make it impactful. So make what you're doing something that the organization is going to go, yes, that was worth doing. That was something it was worth doing, that extra training. It was worth doing that extra learning and the extra hours as part of that. Implementing the right project. Look, put the customer first. So put the end user first. Understand what they're going to do and take their many ideas. Generative AI is probably the first technology probably the first technology that was released, that we've seen everybody across the organization have ideas about how this could make my job useful. From people working from transcribing documents all the way up to CEOs going, how can this make me more efficient? How can I understand? So it's been able to pick those right ideas and get the right ones that are going to drive business value. I will always say experiment. Try it in small pockets, understand the implications of that, and then decide if you want to actually implement that across the whole of the organization. The last thing you want to do is roll out something that's been untried and untested to huge parts of your organization and then see what happens after that. Learn from all of your projects, whether they work or whether they don't work. Learning from failure is some of the best ways of understanding what went wrong, so when you try it the next time, you actually understand that. But if it does work and if it is something that you want to do, scale it across the organization and repeat. Start small, keep iterating, do lots of small projects, building towards your North Star of where you actually want to go. All that sounds extremely positive and talks about innovation for the last 20 minutes about where we want to go. But I do want to acknowledge that there is new risks and challenges with generative AI. You will have all seen some of the articles in the newspaper and online about when generative AI and when AI goes wrong. So we want to make sure it's been done right. What I'm going to talk to you now has come from Amazon's best practices of working with AI for the last 25 years. So as a show of hands, does anyone use Amazon.com? I do have a way of checking, by the way, so just in case you want. So most people here use Amazon.com. Most people use Netflix. Anyone use Netflix? Prime, Disney Plus. Mine is stuck on Bluey, if anyone wants to know. So all of those use AI and machine learning day to day as part of it. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is how AI has been used in Amazon and how we've used that to generate our business for the last 20 years. Back in the late 90s, or machine learning was introduced as recommendations on Amazon.com. 2012, we introduced Alexa, which is that little blue device that sits in the corner of most people's houses that people use for timers, or playing the theme tune to Bluey, if anyone wants. That's what my one does. I have young kids, that's why there's a lot of Bluey. That was 2012. 2019 released a product called SageMaker, which democratized AI ML to customers around the world. And there's over 100,000 customers now using Bedrock or SageMaker in production. Last year, we introduced a product called Bedrock, which is our implementation of large language models. And since it was released in late September last year, there's now over 10,000 customers using it in production. So a lot of what you're going to hear me talk about has come from that nearly 25 years of working with machine learning, AI, and now generative AI to build up some of this. So the emerging risks and challenges that you are going to see. Veracity, e.g. hallucinations. We've probably come up with a new word for hallucinations, but hallucinations that people will see about when the machine goes wrong and understanding what that means. Toxicity and safety, intellectual property. I couldn't come to a university and not talk about intellectual property and what that actually means as part of it. And then data privacy. And today we're going to dive into two of these. We don't have enough time. I could probably talk about responsible AI for days. If people wanted to talk about that, I am more than happy to do it. It is something really important for organizations. But if we look at hallucinations, it, I think, was one of Webster's words of the year in 2023, and understanding what a hallucination is really important. So the technical term for it is, and I will read it out, it is a foundation model output that is verifiably false based on information in the prompt or external knowledge repositories. When I talked earlier on about having domain experience and having domain knowledge, that is how people know that this model is hallucinating as part of this. One of the things with generative AI is the hallucination, because of the way it works, looks extremely real. This is a screenshot of a prompt asking for research papers by Michael Kearns. Michael Kearns is an author in the AI space. You actually look through those, two of them are actually correct papers that he has actually written himself. Two of them are actually hallucinations by the large language model as part of that. So if you don't look for sources, if you don't look for explainability and traceability as part of what you're doing, there is no way of telling false from true as part of that statement. And that is something when you talk to customers and when you talk to organizations, how do they know what a hallucination is? How can they trust the information that's coming back as part of that? And implementing a responsible AI framework is one step towards that. Michael Kearns is probably now one of the most Googled people after we do these presentations, as people go to check what papers has he actually written. You couldn't come to a university and not talk about intellectual property and what that's actually going to mean to organizations and what that's going to mean to universities about how they look at what's been created, what's been written, and what's been done as part of that. And this is a debate that is going to continue on for a number of years. If I was to ask an AI model to draw me a picture of a cat in the style of Picasso, am I impinging on Picasso's rights and intellectual property as part of that? And this is a debate that is going to go on for the next number of years about how we actually deal with this. And that's why it's really important to understand how your model was trained, the data that was actually trained on, and what that means and implications for your organization as part of that. So it is one of the areas that you're going to hear a lot more people talk about over the next number of years. Data privacy, which was one of the other ones. Data privacy has been around for the last number of years. The EU has taken a huge number of steps around trying to safeguard people's right to privacy, and you'll see GDPR and how that, and if you work or if you deal with the US, the California Consumer Protection Act. India is in the middle of producing their version of it. Brazil is doing the same thing as well. China has data regulations as well. So it's about understanding that data privacy is going to be part of what we are going to do for the next number of years. I've already mentioned it once, but responsible AI is something that I personally believe in, Amazon Web Services believes in, and is part of why we're one of the founding members of AI for Good. The OECD defines responsible AI as AI that is innovative and trustworthy and respects human rights and democratic values. You will note from what they're actually saying as part of that, they don't say generative AI, they don't say machine learning, they talk about the whole family of AI. So not just the generative AI, but everything as part of it. It respects human rights and their democratic values as part of that. And that's led Amazon to talk about our framework for how we look at responsible AI and how to implement it. There is 8 pillars to responsible AI considerations that we will talk about. The first one is controllability, privacy, security, safety, fairness, veracity, explainability, transparency, and governance. And just a little bit, when this first started and when we first started to talk about responsible AI considerations, there was only 6 pillars. Now there are 8. So this is continuing to change on an almost monthly or daily basis as we learn more and as we continue to build out our knowledge in this. So it will continue to change. They weren't 2 new, by the way, if anyone asked, they weren't 2 brand new pillars that somebody went, oh, we forgot one of these. They were actually subfamilies of the 6 that we actually decided to take out and put them on their own because they were so important as part of that. I'm not going to go through all 8 today, but we will dive a little bit deeper into some of them so you understand what they actually mean and what they will do, how you can actually implement them as part of your organization. So veracity and fairness, or veracity and robustness. I've already spoken about hallucinations, but the robustness part of it talks about how do you make sure that the model is always there? How do you make sure that what data that it's using? How do you make sure that it is still the same version of the model that you were using yesterday? How do you understand that? So you can actually predict how to actually use it as part of it. The hallucinations, we've now seen a number of ways of actually trying to control the hallucinations. And there's a number of approaches that people use around turning the temperature down on the generative AI model, looking at the data that it was actually trained on, and then using prompt engineering, fine-tuning, and RAG, which are all new terms that everyone's had to learn over the last number of years. We're not going to dive into what they are today, but they are techniques and approaches around making sure that the model is not hallucinating and is robust so you can depend on the results that come out as part of it. Explainability. I worked from previous to Amazon, I worked in a company called Dun & Bradstreet. They were a global organization that if you work in the financial services sector, they were huge. They do consumer or they do organizational credit. So they will be deciding about why organizations were getting credit or why organizations were not getting credit. So when we introduced machine learning models, being able to explain the decision why we were saying yes or no, and the amount we were saying yes and no to customers was extremely important. You need to be able to explain why the result you're seeing is the result you're seeing. You will see that now, as a lot of the new models have now started to come out and say, quote me the sources that you will have seen to derive this answer. And you will see companies actually say, it is because of this. We are spending an awful lot of time with different examples. And if there's an example in the UK with Swindon County Council, who are now taking public documentation and using large language models to translate that documentation into a language that a normal day-to-day person like myself can actually understand. So they're taking government publications, translating them so that people can understand and use that in their day-to-day. But at the same time, they're making sure that can always be linked back to the original publication that they've taken the information from. And it's an amazing way to actually use AI to actually help people understand areas where they couldn't have understood before or were confused. In Ireland, we're also working with the I always get the name the wrong way around, the National Council for the Blind, about how do you actually make AI and how do you make it more accessible for people and how do they interact with the internet when they can't actually see what's in front of them. Transparency. Transparency around understanding, enabling stakeholders to make informed decisions about the engagement with the AI system. So being transparent. And when we talk about stakeholders, you will now see that common practice is if you're chatting with a chatbot on a website to say, is this a human or is this an AI? So enabling people to understand that you are using AI to help you as part of this, or you are chatting with a AI and not a human as part of that, and offering people the option to talk to a human if the AI is not working the way they expect it to do. But making sure that people have that transparency when they do it. You will see it used in a lot in banking for augmenting and helping banks to make decisions, but making sure that people understand that you are talking to either a human or you're talking to an augmented AI assistant that's actually helping you make those decisions. Probably one of the most important ones that I look at is controllability. So having mechanisms to monitor and steer the AI system behavior. So being in control of it. And so what this means for most people, if you're building applications, it's understanding what you're going to do with it in the application. But also if you zoom out of that and look at organizations, understand how organizations are actually interacting with AI. You will have seen a lot of companies come out with policies around what can ChatGPT be used for and what it can't be used for. What co-pilots and augmented assistants can be used for and can't be used for as part of day-to-day business. But having that control in your organization and making sure that you understand the controls that you have in place and why you have them in place. What we want to do is enable innovation across organizations, but at the same time, be safe and understand the risk and considerations that you have to do as part of an organization's role. The last thing I wanted to leave you with today is, where do you start? This may seem like a mountain, this may seem like an Everest that you are going to climb in organizations to adopt AI. And I spent the second half of the presentation worrying you all about what AI is going to do. But it is think big, think about how this is going to change your business model, think about how this is going to change your organization, how it's going to change your day-to-day life as part of what you're actually doing. And then as you do that, think big, but start small. Take one step on the mountain. That is how you start everything. Take one small step and then repeat that continuously till you get to where you want to be.
In closing, Ritchie Jones provided a comprehensive and thought-provoking exploration of the current state and future trajectory of AI in our world. He highlighted the critical importance of domain expertise and critical thinking, illustrating how AI can augment rather than replace human roles, particularly through the insightful case study of Cool Planet. As we look forward to a future where AI is deeply integrated into various sectors, Ritchie's insights equip us with the knowledge to harness AI's potential effectively and ethically. Thank you for joining us, and we hope this episode has inspired you to think deeply about the role of AI in your own professional and personal lives. And if you would like to chat with any of the team at the Enterprise Academy about future collaborations, please do get in touch. You will find our contact details in the podcast show notes. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.